Hello everyone, back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak and we've got perfect fishing conditions this morning. We had some rainstorms come through the other day in waves. We still have some lingering clouds and overcast skies. And the only thing that would make this a little bit more perfect is if we had some wind. And luckily, in about 30 minutes, the southwest wind is going to kick up and also supercharge the fishing. But right now we've got flat, calm water. It's easy paddling. Getting myself situated and nothing left to do but put my head down and paddle. We're going to paddle across the lake and hopefully catch up to that southwest wind. Or maybe that southwest wind is going to catch up to us. Either way, we're going to find the wind and catch a bunch of fish on a variety of lures today. This part is always easier in fast forward mode. But like I said, I brought a bunch of lures with me today, a bunch of rods. I've got a topwater walking bait. I've got a 3-inch swim bait, the Crush City Mare in the Tennessee Shad color. I've got my fluke rod with me. I always like to have my fluke rod with me. Such a versatile bait. You can fish it slow, you can fish it fast. You can let it sink to the bottom and work it up. You can keep it on the surface and kind of dance it across the water. If you put your rod tip straight up in the air and reel kind of slowly, you can get it to wake on the surface. And sometimes when they're chasing bait, like herring or shad or whatever, there'll be a single bait fish that gets cut off from the school and it's just waking on the surface. And that's what that retrieve imitates. And you'd be surprised, the fish just come off of the school and blast it. But I'm going to start out with the Crush City Mare. Let it sink to the bottom. I'm watching my line to see when it hits the bottom. And then as soon as I hit the bottom, start reeling. I popped it off the bottom a few times. I got a fish. It's a good way to start. I really just started fishing. And it's going to get a whole lot better than this too. I'm liking that Crush City Mare. It's a good bait. That kind of 3-inch swim bait like a Largo Shad or the Crush City Mare. It's a good bait for covering water, kind of gauging the fish's activity, seeing if you can locate some fish. I don't have any electronics on the boat, so if I can locate some fish with a small swim bait and then kind of pick them apart with other lures, that's a good thing. As soon as I put my thumb on him, he launched that swim bait onto the deck of the kayak. Wasn't even attached to anything. I didn't think I had him hooked very well. Some fish popped up near me, and they were in super fluke range. So I've got an electric shad super fluke on, and I'm trying to coax a few of them into leaving that school of bait fish and chasing the super fluke. Generally, I fish it fairly slow. I want to give them a chance to close the distance and commit. See what I did there? I changed up my retrieve from kind of a jerk pause retrieve to a straight V-wake on the surface. I know you can't see the bait V-waking on the surface, but I was pointing the rod tip straight up at the sky and reeling slowly. And what that does is get that super fluke waking on the surface. It actually has a little bit of a wobble to it if you get the speed just right. So I want to go as slow as I can while keeping that super fluke nose right on the surface and getting that V-wake. Anyway, this largemouth chased it down and ate it. So sometimes just by changing up the retrieve on the super fluke, you can get them to react. And they might like one retrieve over the other on any particular morning. The fish went back down and I went to a different rod. This one has a jig and minnow. It's a 1/4 ounce jig head with a 5-inch Strike King Z2. And the advantage of that elastomer plastic is that it lasts forever. And if they decide that they want to hit it just as well as plastisol baits, then I am all for it. So the bait I'm fishing is a Strike King Z2. It's very similar to the Z-Man jerk shads. They might even come off the same factory floor. I don't know. But the color is called the Deal. And it's got kind of a dark green pumpkin back and a blue hue, just a little bit of blue coloring on the sides, and a lighter colored belly. So it could be a bluegill, it could be a herring, could be a shad. It could be a lot of different things. And I like that color in a lot of different baits just because it looks like a little bit of everything but nothing in particular. And I put a little bit of Procure herring scent on there. And this fish seemed to like it. I tie a loop knot onto the jig head because I think it gives the bait more action as I'm shaking it. And I got a smallmouth in the net.
Yeah, he's not that big. Good enough though.
He's not a giant, but he thinks he is. Yeah, not bad. See ya. So that was fun. Let's do that again. I'm going to cast straight back where I hooked that smallmouth. Let the bait go all the way to the bottom. I have to pay a little bit of attention because sometimes the fish like to pick it up before it actually hits the bottom. But most of the time, it hits the bottom, and then I give it a few quick cranks, get it up off the bottom, and then it's just a slow, steady retrieve while I'm shaking the rod. And I got another fish. That bottom strolling technique is really working out well for me. And it seemed like on this day they liked the bottom strolling, that jig and minnow with the shaking, better than the swim bait. And maybe they've seen a lot of swim baits over the years. Maybe they're starting to get conditioned to them. But I can tell you they haven't seen a lot of this. They haven't seen a lot of the jig and minnow with the shaking. And that's largemouth. Seemed like the schools of fish were kind of mixed. Not bad, not bad. Thanks for playing, bud. After I let that last fish go, some fish started popping behind me. It always seems like they start popping up behind me, never in front of me. That's okay. I'll spin the kayak around, and if they come up again, I'll be ready for them. Yep, always behind me, never in front. I got my my fluke on the front deck. Let's see if I can get one. Doing that slow jerk, jerk, pause, retrieve. If they don't go for that, I'll switch it up and do the V-wake on the surface. But one of them smoked it. I like catching them on a fluke. There's a lot of ways you can work it. It's a fun way to fish. And normally I'm fishing it within 6 to 12 inches of the surface. So when they hit it almost like it was a topwater. Sometimes they'll blow it out of the water because they're only, 6 to 12 inches below the surface, and they're coming up and smoking that bait. So to me, it's almost as fun as fishing topwater. That's a nice largemouth. He's been eating well. Maybe a she. That single hook on the fluke pins him really well. Yeah, nice thick fish. Thanks for playing. Alright, no fish are showing, so I'm going to go back to the jig and minnow. That's sort of my game plan now. No fish are showing, I'm going to fish a 3-inch swim bait or the jig and minnow. Bottom strolling. And then when they come up to the surface, if they're close in range, I'm going to throw a fluke at them. If they're a little bit further off, I'm going to throw a heavier topwater that I can cast a little bit further than the fluke. It doesn't take too long, just shaking that jig and minnow. They seem to like the Strike King Z2 just as well as the freeloader. And I like that the Z2 is just a little bit bigger than the freeloader. All things being equal, usually a bigger bait will get you a bigger bite. So I was happy to see that this was working. I'm sure in some circumstances, a freeloader might be better than the Z2 or vice versa. And I like some of the colors in both of them. I really like the Crush City colors. They have some good shad imitations. They have some new colors coming out. This electric shad color that looks really good. Green pumpkin disco that looks really good. Anyway, they've got a bunch of different colors. If I was trying to imitate bluegill though, I think I like this deal color a little bit better. So anyway, there's a lot of different options out there. There's another bait I want to try. It's the Yum Sonar Minnow. And that has some other cool colors too. One's kind of clear, like a clear shad color. And there's another one called Ayu, which is a golden color. And just depending on where you are in the country, some of these different color patterns, you know, they might line up a little bit better with the bait fish in your lake, or maybe you want something bold and contrasting. Anyway, it's nice as a fisherman. You've got a lot of options now, and you can kind of pick and choose what baits you want to throw for matching the hatch or matching the conditions or water clarity. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent there. Let's get back to the fishing. The other nice thing about the Strike King Z2 or the Z-Man jerk shads is that you don't have to waste any time re-rigging or, you know, putting on a new bait or adding super glue or repairing the baits. You can pretty much fish these again and again and again because they're just so durable, especially rigged on a jig head like this. Now, I used to fish them like a fluke. I'd weight them down and fish them like a heavy fluke. We can put a tungsten nail weight in the belly slot and glue it in place, and then rig it with a EWG style hook. Anyway, after I do that for a while, I'd rip out the nail weight, cut off about a ½ inch off the nose, put it on a jig head and fish them in salt water. That deal color is a great bait in salt water too. And so, you know, you might catch 50 fish on it in fresh water, and then go out in salt water and catch another 50 on it. And it's a great bait. You know, you can fish it for black sea bass, fluke. It's a little big for scup, but if the scup are big enough, they'll eat it too. Anyway, it's a great bait, very versatile. You can catch a ton of fish on it before you wear them out. You can repair them with super glue to a certain extent. And there's another bass. Thanks for playing, bud. Well, he didn't want to let go of my thumb. Some more schooling bass popped up within range. So you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab that fluke rod. That's a 610 X-Pride medium power rod. A lot of people like them for hard plastic jerk baits, but they're good for all kinds of stuff. As long as you don't fish with too heavy of a hook, like a superline hook, that 610 medium X-Pride can set a light wire hook, no problem with a fluke. They're also good for other stuff too, like blade baits. You can fish smaller topwaters on them. It's a really great rod, and it's not just for hard plastic jerk baits. You can do a lot with that rod. I think I'm still fishing with a Yamamoto D-Shad there. I was changing between the Yamamoto D-Shad and an electric shad colored super fluke. Alright, no fish are showing, so I'm going back to the jig and minnow, and I'm going to bottom stroll that bait. Let it hit the bottom. Watch the line in case the fish grabs it on the way down. I'm going to get my line tight on the spool, reel up the slack, pop it a few times. I loosened up my drag, so I'm going to be sure to tighten it back down before I get another fish so I can set the hook. And then it's a slow retrieve while I'm shaking that rod with my right hand. And if I run into some weeds or a fish pops it, I'll pop them right back. And then it's back to a slow, steady retrieve. I think that first hit was actually a fish and not weeds. And eventually he came back for it and ate it. Just took him a minute to, I don't know, track it down or something. But I felt him a few times before he actually committed. There he is. Sometimes that can be a smaller largemouth or maybe a smallmouth. They have smaller mouths, and sometimes it takes them a minute to get around a 5-inch bait, like the Strike King Z2 or the Z-Man jerk shads. So I just keep reeling, keep going. Whatever it was you were doing, they liked, and so I'm going to do that all the way to the boat and give them a chance to commit and really eat it. This fish was giving me quite a bit of a tussle. I don't remember if it was a bigger fish or maybe I had him hooked a little funny. I can't go too heavy with the drag because I only have a loop knot on the nose of that jig head, and the loop knot's just not a great knot. There he is. It's not a bad largemouth. If you'd let me get my thumb on him, I'd show him to you. There he is. Yeah, maybe a little better. Nice and thick. Off he goes. That worked well. Let's do it again. So I don't have any electronics on the boat, but I just cast back where I caught that last fish, and I'm just hoping there's a school there. I don't have any forward-facing sonar. I don't have anything on this boat. I like keeping it light if I can. If I really need electronics, I'll bring them. But it just adds to the weight and clutters up the front deck. So if I can get away without using electronics, I like to just keep everything nice and light and clean. And it's just easier that way. Anyway, there was another fish there. It's coming in a little bit easier than that last one. Now he's fighting. I couldn't quite see what he was. I saw him jump, but I don't know what he was. Maybe a smallmouth? No, just a largemouth that likes to jump. Let me grab you, bud. I'll send you on your way. There he is. I think the camera cut out as I was releasing that last fish, but that's okay. Let me show you what I was throwing. That's a Strike King 5-inch Z2 in the deal color. See, it's got green pumpkin on the back, a little bit of blue on the sides and the nose, and a light belly. So to me, that color combo could be almost anything. If you put it in a craw pattern, it looks a fair amount like the crawfish we have around here in the Northeast. But in a minnow shape, it could be a bluegill. The profile isn't quite right for a bluegill, but you know, it's in the ballpark. Could be a herring, could be a shad, could be an alewife, could be a lot of different things. Anyway, it's a color that the fish seem to like, and they think it's food, and it's working for me, so I'm going to keep throwing it. Same kind of deal. Cast it out, let it hit bottom, and then it's a slow retrieve while I'm shaking that rod. The whole time I'm shaking that rod. I thought when I first started this bottom strolling stuff, I'd get annoyed shaking the rod so much, but it's been so productive that the shaking doesn't seem to tire me out, and it doesn't bother me nearly as much as I thought it would. I thought after a morning or two of doing this, my wrist would be sore from shaking it so much, and I don't know, I just thought it would get annoying shaking the rod, but you do get used to it pretty fast. Letting that bait hit bottom, I give it a few quick cranks, get it up off bottom, tighten the drag, and then it's a slow retrieve while I'm shaking the rod. I felt something pop it. I popped him right back. I'm going to keep continuing the same retrieve. Slow and steady while I'm shaking the rod. Going a little bit faster than I ought to maybe. Maybe I thought there's some weeds down there. I'm trying to keep it above the weeds. Let's see if I can get a fish to go for it. Shake, shake, shake. And I got a fish. That one's acting a little bit crazy. That one might be a smallie. I'm trying to dial back the drag. I actually put my finger on the lip of the spool sometimes to slow the drag down a little bit. I feel like I have a little bit better control sometimes with my hand on the spool. That might be a leftover from fishing saltwater. I don't know. Oh no, it's not a smallmouth, it's a largemouth. He just likes to jump. And there he goes. The hook fell right out. Easy release. That was fun. Let's do it again. cast out where I caught that last fish. I typically just keep casting the same general area until it doesn't produce anymore. And then I start fan casting around till I find another group of fish. These fish are probably in 20-25 feet of water. Let that bait hit the bottom, pop it up, and then it's a slow, steady retrieve while shaking constantly. And that bait is flip-flopping under the surface of the water. It's going left, right, left, right. And with the loop knot, it'll do almost 180 degrees. So I like the idea of having a two-color bait. So something with a darker back and a lighter belly, like the deal color. Because as you're having that bait flip-flop underwater, that contrast between the light belly and the dark back shows up really well as the bait's flip-flopping. And so I like the idea of, two-color profile. And it seems to be working. But I do want to experiment with a clear shad too. So Yum has that forward-facing sonar minnow in a clear shad. And I want to see if that works just as well or not. And it might work really well in super clear water. And this water isn't super clear right now. Maybe a couple feet of visibility. But it's definitely not 20 feet. And I'm thinking that clear shad might work well in places where there's quite a bit of visibility and the fish get a really good look at the bait. That looks like a smallmouth.
Not even that big.
Nice. Yeah. Nice fish. Thanks for playing, bud. So after I released that smallie, some fish came up on an inside turn off of this point. And I couldn't get over there quite fast enough. But I figured I'd take a few casts with a Zoom Super Fluke, and that's in the electric shad color, and see if I could get any fish to come up or come back up after what looks like a solo herring that was left behind in the ruckus, in the fray. And I got one to go for it. Decent largemouth. Come on over here, you. So yeah, that inside turn can be a good pattern to get on. So sometimes the fish will be ambushing bait right off the tip of the point, but a lot of times they'll run up bait onto either side of the point, and that's called an inside turn. And they can kind of corral the bait fish into this inside turn, either on the side of the point or all the way back in this little pocket here. Right now I'm trying a V-waking retrieve on the surface to see if I can get any fish to come up. I kind of mix up the retrieve with the fluke, but most of the time I'm fishing with a jerk pause kind of retrieve. But sometimes I mix it up just to see if they'll go for it. Now I'm back to the jerk pause. Jerk pause. Fishing it pretty slowly, giving a chance for the fish to close the gap. And this seems like a little better fish. It's peeling some drag off. Always a good sign. I've got some heavier line on my Super Fluke rod, even though it's a fairly light rod. I have 30-pound braid and a 12-pound Yozuri hybrid leader, so I can lean on these fish a lot more than I can with the jig and minnow rods. And I like that. I like being able to land them quickly. I don't have to worry about breaking them off. Yeah, maybe a little better. There's a boat going by me. This is a little trick. There's a boat going by me, and I'm going to keep that fish in the water until he goes by me. Got to be careful with this if there's any snapping turtles in the area. But, yeah, sometimes if you hold up a fish like that while there's a boat coming by, there'll be somebody fishing within 15 feet of you in about 2 minutes. And so, yeah, that's just a little trick I do sometimes. I keep the fish in the water if somebody's going by me. Let's see if I can get another one on the fluke. Got some boat wakes coming in as that boat ran past me. Sometimes that can churn up the bait fish, and you'll see bass busting bait in boat wakes. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes it can scare them and make them go down. Other times it seems like they wait till the boat goes by and then they're right there busting bait. And that's another nice fish. Pull and drag. There's probably quite a few fish on this inside turn. I spent most of the morning fishing offshore, 20, 25 feet of water. And it looks like there's some in 10, 15 of water too. They're not too shy about the super fluke. When they want to eat it, they come up and smoke it. That's not a bad one either. Nice and fat. Yeah, nice belly. There he is. Nice and thick. Thanks for playing, bud. So I had a great morning out here. The wind helped me and the overcast conditions really helped me. I don't know if there was a distinct star of today, but I caught a bunch on the jig and minnow with the Strike King Z2, that full-size 5-inch Z2. That was a pretty good bait for me. Caught one or two early on the 3-inch Crush City Mare on that little swim bait. I got a bunch on the Super Fluke and the Yamamoto D-Shad. Between the two, I like the Super Fluke a little bit better for schooling fish. Stays up higher. The D-Shad is almost like a Senko. It wants to sink really fast. And you can fish it like that. The Strike King Caffeine Shad's a similar bait. It wants to sink really fast. And so I use that when the fish are inactive and just kind of hanging on the bottom and not actively feeding. If the fish are aggressive at all, I mean even moderately aggressive, I like fishing the Super Fluke a little bit better. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I gotta start heading for home right now. But like all my other videos, I'll put all the gear, line, rods, reels, baits, colors, all that good stuff in the video description, so you can duplicate what I was doing out here today at your own home lakes and hopefully have some good success there. A lot of these herring lakes, they fish very similarly all across the country. You want to get out there when it's overcast, when there's a little bit of wind. These were kind of ideal conditions, and it worked out for me. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!